be proper and actually do this. This also gives you the beginning of the shape of what you're hollowing, which is useful. Sometimes I feel like people just start going at it and like the shape is not that, it's not just this, it's like pretty specific, you know, kidney shaped in this case. One of the things I hope you notice is that I'm not hollowing into the air. So I'm never like going like this. I'm always hollowing into my hand so that I can feel where I'm getting close. When you get close, you'll actually feel the tool before it goes through. So you could be on the lookout for that. But again, it's not the end of the world if you go through, actually. It's even on the handout. Because I go through all the time. Even as careful as I am. Huh?
Makes me feel better.
Yeah.
Go through.
I go through all the time. I don't go through as often as I used to, but I do definitely go through occasionally. So I need to hollow a little bit out more where the breasts are. I can't just leave that and just pretend it's not there. It is there. So let's acknowledge that. This person had breasts that I was sculpting and actually hollow out where those boobs are. It's not revisionist. Piece making its way. Okay, good.
On the hands, my fingers are more narrow than the tools. That means I don't have to.
Yeah, that's the test. If you can't fit the tool in, it doesn't have to be held. No, the test really is like, I would say an inch is the most. So when I look at this hand, I really don't need to hollow any of the fingers at all. They're fine. They're gonna be fine. Part of it is that there's air all around them. They're not like tight in anywhere, there's plenty of air. And I could stick my needle tool into the base of them because I'm gonna cut this hand here, like that. So I'll be able to get in there a little bit with a tool and just poke. Even if I poke in there, that's enough for something this thick. Does that make sense? Thank you. Okay. All right. Okay, it's really hard to not misplace these little dudes. So, and the other thing is you want to keep things covered. So instead of just leaving this out while I'm doing this other piece, I want to keep everything covered up because once things get hollow, you will see they dry so fast because you took all their moisture out, right? The thing was leather hard on the outside, on the inside it was super soft, and all that softness was continuing to rehydrate the outside. And as soon as you take all that wet clay out, it's like, woo, drying. It's so exciting. And then it's dry before you know it. So keep your stuff covered up. I usually don't have multiple, right now I've got all these out because these are not ready. So I just like uncovered them all when I got here to get them a little bit more ready. Okay, how am I gonna do this head neck thing? Almost there. Gotta get this shoulder. Oh yeah, I was gonna go through. Okay, I'll go through. Through here. Okay. Great. Perfect. Opportunity. Awesome. Learning opportunity. Okay. So the first thing I'll do is score from the inside if I can. I can't really get in there this one, so I'm gonna score from the outside, which is fine. Okay. I'm gonna take some of this clay. If it's still squishy, which a lot of times it will be, I'll use the same exact clay that I had inside, because it's almost the same consistency, and it's like part of itself already. I don't know, some kind of kinship. Probably. I don't really care. Okay. I'm going to get a paintbrush with a little bit of water, make that a little bit wet. Not a lot wet, but you know, I want it to be goopy. This is the scoring tool, which I have some of. I don't have enough for everybody, so. But you have to buy it. It's a tool that you buy. So you're going to score. What I'm going to do is shove this from the inside into that cavity that got made. I'm going to score, add a little bit more of this score, and then add a little water, and then add a little bit more scoring. I did the same on the inside. Did everybody get that? That's really important. Okay. Then I'm going to take this and shove it into that hole. I'm not going to do that from the outside though. I don't want to mess up everything else. I just want to patch the hole. So doing it from the inside is the least invasive to the outside. And most of the time, if the clay is kind of not super dry, that'll work. That's enough. Because we scored the heck out of it. And I'm going to compress it too in a minute, so I'm kind of not too worried about that. If it's a little bit drier, you'll notice the clay is not quite as, it'll, you know, re-separate or something like that. If you just notice when it's drier, you have to do a little bit more, maybe a little more scraping like this to get it to really adhere. And then you can go back in and just get rid of that with a wet finger or something like that. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay. The scoring tools are $4. Okay, so let's pretend, because I do have to kind of pretend, because I need to still work a little bit more. But I just want to show you the neck part, the neck head. So I'm going to use this is a situation where people are tempted to go thinner. Because you're like, but I can't even get the tool in there. But you can. You can find a tool to get in there. This tool works pretty good. The other one that I'm going to use, this is the eye tool. These I also have for sale today. If you decide to buy one. There's also, I think there are enough of these for everybody to have one, or buy one if you want. This is really nice because it's a little scooper. So it's really handy for smaller applications, like this one. So how do I know where to come in from the bottom? Any ideas how I can figure that out?
Use your tool to line it up.
Yeah. Poke through? That's what I was thinking. There's probably a million ways you can do it, but I just usually use my needle tool or that tool and I just poke through. It's not quite going through yet, so I'll make it a little bit deeper. Oh, going off the side. It's pretty little, the neck. I might just use this tool and actually just go straight through. There we go. Wonderful. So now there's a channel between the head and the neck. You guys see that? Or the head and the body? I don't know if you can see in there or not. I just closed it actually. Because this is not quite done. It's pretty and open back up. Alright. This neck would be super easy to kind of break, so I'm trying to be really careful not to do that. Okay, so then, let's say this is all hollowed exactly right, all that stuff. Not exactly right, those are not the words. Hollowed well, it says hollowed well, feels like everything's in a good spot. The next thing to do, this is not so hard. Scoop. Okay. The next thing to do is to compress. So I often compress after I'm done with each piece so I don't forget to do it, but I'm just kind of showing you all at once. So the next thing is compression. Compression is, if you go to page 2, the thing I like to use the most is this tool, the tongue compressor, I call it. Potters call it something else, but whatever. Or I also have a bigger one of these. That's kind of a paddle, but I use it on bigger pieces just to. So the compression. Why do we want to compress for people who've been in clay before? What's the reasoning?
Avoid cracking.
Yeah, it helps avoid cracking. Why though?
These flat little particles that you're trying to make line up.
Yeah, so it moves those little. Clay is made up of these little particles, and right now they're like, when I made this, I was like, I wasn't really working to get those particles to really even align. I didn't wedge this clay. I didn't do any of the things that you would do in order to have those things line up. And so in order to get that to happen, it's also just the surface. So I cut out all the interior. So in order to give it a little bit of stability, we compress. We make all those little particles line up and really firm up together. Kind of like, this is your spot. What happens when we don't compress? We get cracking. What else?
Just like weaker.
Yeah, it's weaker. And so what might happen on a bigger thing? Yeah, it might cave in, might get misshapen, might like morph in a way that you don't want. So compression is key. So important. Okay. Getting close here.
So you have to use like a big wood thing with your bigger ones, big things pressing.
I mean, I use this most of the time, but sometimes on like a
Really big one.
a really big thigh or something, I have a paddle that's the same, it's kind of the same shape, and I'll just scrape with the paddle because it's a little bigger, but wood is the best, I find. Some people use metal, which is fine, but I think wood is better. It's not quite as hard, so I don't know, something about the wood that feels better to me.
Can that one fit in the neck? Are you gonna use it?
It won't be able to fit in the neck, and that's okay. A lot of times I'll use the back of this little guy. So that's where a situation where I would use metal to really compress.
On a bigger piece, could you use like the rubber? It's called.
The rubber is not firm enough. It needs to be wood or metal, I think, to really work. If you take out some after you compress, I would recommend recompressing that area, just to make sure. Double extra special. Okay, this is not totally hollow yet, but that's okay. I just want to show you how to put it back together. The reason why I was saying that they would probably look pretty good inside is because of that compression, and because you hollow really pretty methodically. And so the inside, actually, I'm fascinated by the inside. They look like these kind of cavernous landscapes. They're super beautiful. I'm actually really I kind of want to make work like that, but I tried and it didn't work out. But if anybody else wants to make work like that, I will love it. Anyway, so yeah. Now I'm so happy that I added the score marks because this does not make, I'm like, well, I don't even know what this is anymore. I've forgotten. Does it go like that? Does it go like this? Luckily I have score marks and it goes like this. Okay? The score marks line up, which is nice. I double check my seams, make sure they're gonna line up before I do the next step so that I know what I'm getting myself into. If you get these all goopy and then they don't fit, it's a lot of messy stuff. So I like to line it all up beforehand. It looks good.
Didn't you say something about putting like a hole in each side or something like that?
I'm gonna put a hole in it after I'm done. Yeah. So I'll do one side with the scoring tool and one side with the needle tool so you can see the difference. So I'm gonna put a little bit of water. Rescore. So it's totally doable with the needle tool. It's just, it takes a little longer. What's really important about this is that it goes in multiple directions. It's not just like 1, 2, 3 and you're done. It needs to be deep. So no chintzy, I don't know where that word comes from, but no, no shallow little, and this tool is not an acceptable scoring tool. Do not do that. Not acceptable. This is not deep enough for this to work, okay? The other tool that people love for some reason to use, and it's also not acceptable, is, I don't know if I have one. It's this little wire tool. Kind of looks like this, but it's just like wires at the end. Do you all know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, for texture.
You've probably seen it. What?
For texture. I have one of them if you want me to grab.
I would love for that. Yeah. And so it is like a texturing tool, but people like to use it for scoring, and it just like doesn't work. It's not enough. Okay. Oh yeah, that's so you can see how people might think that would work. Let me show you what it does.
Yeah.
It just like takes off clay. It actually doesn't do it.
So it makes it.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's actually just almost the opposite of what you need, which is deep scoring. It undoes it, actually. It's bizarre. Anyway.
They're too close together.
They're too close together and they're not firm enough. So they don't penetrate down, which is why this tool is amazing, because it's like 5 needle tools in a row, but they're thinner. So they're not gonna be, like other people use forks. A fork will work, but that's only for giant places. If you use a fork, they're gonna be so far apart. I don't know. It's just a tiny fork. A tiny fork, yeah. If you make yourself a tiny fork.
Oyster.
Ah, there you go. Okay. All right, so I line up my score marks. That looks pretty good. And then the next thing to do is the wiggle. You gotta do a little wiggle. That wiggle gives the little things that you just made time to kind of go like this and lock in. It's very important. I think I've shown you this kind of hollowing and, or maybe not all the way hollowing, but the scoring part. Yeah, but I just want to double, make sure you know. So you score it again. This is all in the handouts if you forget, and we'll put it online. Score again. And my teacher always called this marriage. Oh, your relationship's pretty
Pretty rough.
pretty rough there.
Clean it up.
One of my teachers, I should say, not all of them. And then the other, and then this is called healing. He called this healing. And the healing motion is, it's almost like you're doing a cake, you know, like you're frosting a cake, but you're actually pushing a little bit, not a lot, but enough to actually move clay from each side to the other side. So that's the healing part, is you're healing this wound that you just created. Sorry.
Healing.
What?
Marriage wound.
Healing the marriage wound. I think he probably didn't have such a good marriage.
Maybe not.
I think it's useful though to remember, you know, like
Maybe
sometimes.
he was just talking about marrying the two pieces together.
It is exactly what he was
Yeah.
talking about, but then he would say healing, and everyone would be like, okay.
Really stay.
They could be both called marriage, right?
Right.
They're not. Okay, then you score again. Well, that's the part that people are like, no, yes. That's why having a scoring tool sometimes is not the best. Or borrowing a friend's scoring tool. And then, you know, honestly, I love the clay that's already come out of the figure, if it's still wet enough. If it's dry, don't use it. Find other clay, it's okay. But if I have it, I might as well use it. And so I'm gonna take these little dabs, and I'm gonna spread them over the wound. I'm gonna pack the wound a little. My marriage was excellent, by the way.
Yeah.
You notice I'm not like laying a coil in there or anything like that. I just take these little dabs, put them in. Okay. Once I get that all laid in, then you're gonna be able to see the seam, right? Because I just laid a bunch of clay in there. What would happen if I didn't do this? Does everybody know? Yeah, the strength may be compromised. What else?
You'll be able to see the cut line.
You'd be able to see there'd be a little divot because when you marry it back together, when you score it and marry it, it really compresses in that spot, which is good, but it leaves a little divot. So you always just do this adding of clay. And so after you add the clay, then you go back and you retexturize however it was before. So somebody was asking me about when should I add the details of my hand? Should I worry about getting that now, or should I try to just do it, you know, after I hollow? And I would say do it now, and then don't cut in places that are super sensitive, but you've added a bunch of detail, if you can. And you just retexturize after, just the spot that got cut. I really actually finish the piece and then I hollow it. So I don't wait. There's very few situations. So you have a situation right now, Jay, where you're trying to add these little tiny, very fragile little things, right? So I would wait till after I hollow to add those little tiny, very thin, like minutia pieces, right? You wouldn't want to add those now. I mean, what if, it would be terrible. It would break, right? And I don't want to go through that. So there are times when you would do that. Okay, let's pretend I put the head cap back on. Now, where am I going to put a hole in this piece? Yeah, because why? Not because it's the bottom.
You don't see it?
Because you don't see it. So there's lots of places I could put it. I could put it in here. I could put it down here. I could put it in there. Look at that crack there. Like that's a perfect mask for a hole. So that's where I'll put it. I'm gonna put it right here. But it's not because it's really at the bottom necessarily.
That's so the air can go through.
That's so the air can come out. You really want to make sure that's all the way into the cavity. If it's not, kaboom. Okay? So don't be scared. Push the needle till you'll feel it. You'll feel it go through clay and then get into air. You'll feel the difference. It's different. Okay? You guys feel good about that? Okay, before you break out, let's just really quick discuss what we would do about the hand. So where should I cut? I've already told you that I would cut across here. So that would give me this top half. These two fingers are not really connected. That would give me this top half, and if they were, I could just cut them apart and reattach them. That would not be a huge deal. So I could just cut there, but then do you think I could get into the thumb and the wrist? Because I am not hollowing up through the wrist. I want a complete sculpture. So can I get in here and there and here without cutting another time? I don't think so either. So then where would I cut next?
Like as close to the bottom as possible. Without like making that shape.
I think there's multiple places you could cut this and it would be okay.
Okay.
I think if it were me, I'd probably cut here because that would give me a large area way to get into the thumb, and it would give me a large area way to get into the wrist, and a large area way to get into the side hand. Does that make sense? If I just cut the thumb like this, that's a nice, like, easy to manage cut, but I still won't be able to get from here down into the wrist, and I'll end up cutting it again, which is fine. Sometimes more cuts is better. Often more cuts is better. But in this case, I don't need to do it to be able to get into it if I cut here. Okay, so it's a little bit of like a logic puzzle. All right, any questions? Did I miss anything?
Yeah, and so are you gonna go near the fingers?
No. Yeah, when I go, what I'm gonna do is hollow this part, because this part is too thick to fire. And then I'm gonna poke into the fingers with my needle tool. I'll just poke, 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 poke. So it gives it a little bit more way for the air to escape, or for the water
Just
to
a
be able
bunch
to
of tiny holes.
Yeah, just poke, poke, poke. Yeah. I'll probably go up like this far. Okay?
How far?
Like this far?
Oh, really?
Yeah. Any other things? Sorry.